Sanje Chedon Soki Chonam La Chanchu Parto Dani Kapsunche Page Jinso Gipe Sonamki Dola Penjere Sange Ndo Parasho Sanje Chedon Soki Chonam Chanchu Parto Dani Kapsunche Page Jinso Gipe Sonamki Dola Penjere Sange Ndo Parasho Sangye che danso ki chanamba, chanchu pardo dani kyabsunche, bhage jinso ki pe sonamki, dola panjira sangye ndo parasho, simchen tamche dewa tang, dewe kyu tang, dembara kyu, simchen tamche lungal tang, lungal ki kyu tang, rawa, simchen tamche lungal me, dewa tang minda war kyu che, simchen tam Nirin Chadan Nidan Tra Tanyamlan Nebara Kuruchi Simjan Tam Dewana Levi Kutan Dembara Simjan Tamje Lungal Dan Lungal Gi Kutan Tawara Simjan Tamje Lungal Mebe Dewadan Minda Simchen Tamje Nirin Chadan Nidan Tra Nyumla Nebara Gyuruchi Simchen Tam Dewa Na Devi Gyudan Dembara Simchen Tamje Lungal Dan Lungal Gi Gyudan Trawari Simchen Tamje Lungal Mebe Dewa Dan Mindrawari Simchen Tamje Nirin Chadan Nidan Tra Nyumla Nebara Gyuruchi Simchen Tamje Dewa Na Devi Gyudan Dembara Simchen Tamje Lungal Dan Lungal Gi Gyudan Trawari Simchen Tamje Lungal Mebe Dewa Dan Mindrawari Simchen Tamje Nirin Chadan Nidan Tra Nyumlan Neba Gyoje Sajibyo Joje Meda Oyaretong Rirani Nyeleyembandi Sangejendu Netembuai Doekena Jinlai Chibai Idang Guru Renamindalakaniataya.
Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. This ground, spread with incense, adorned with strewn flowers, Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land, and by offering it to you, may all living beings enjoy this pure land. Thus, meeting the teaching of the peerless teacher is due to the spiritual mentor's kindness. I dedicate this virtue for all living beings to be cared for by excellent spiritual friends. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niryata Yami.
Yeah, that kazang among the Kajamang Bushe, but that Kazan Zanima Kaje Raji Mebasi the Gala, Ko Nangni Mitumba Inza, Nang Sultarduchik, Maso now alter the Tubaji, now alter the Tubat and Zin on the Gala, Kroa Korbuare. Now alter the Tita Kroa Kortigita, Zual Mambuchikore. The women the nature Tumumay Menechu Teledote, Nechu Kare, Nang Najinji, the Yomares, the Kachatichi on Core. The nature the Nanajin Mena, Nana was Nanganajimena, Nanganaji condition and Gores, oh, Nananish, Pagini, you'll condition Nangoga, you'll crown on the two to Yundegen, Zembawa Yundegen, Rakawa Yundegenji, was on Nangiore. Tendiji Yomares. Tendiji your Najin Zimbe Kenking also that pay Ken Mamboshi didn't think over it. Then I think you are Maranizula, you pay 10 Chile Chitin Chinamado, you'll then Babaji to your Mares, Rajing to the Tomares, the Tishi Gores. Kazangazo Karsan, Kundana Buchite. Ani Umajigab and Dewache. Teni Lovan Tawata Pinze, Sashi change. Tete Gala, Do Nungi Tang Bas. But I take on a Tirin Junjui, Junji Nembi Gap, the Miss Catch Mujibu. Jungo Yongure, you know that is don't touch it, but I miss catch him.
So the last time we met, the last Sunday that we met, we really spent a good period of that time having a conversation about what does it mean to have no true existence, to have no true self-nature. And so we spoke a lot about that, that actually appearances in our experience are actually free from any real self-nature. Being that way, though, just the same, they appear as if they're very, very real, very, very established and existent by their own right. And because of this, we have a very fixed notion. We hold to an understanding of those things that appear as just as they appear, real, actual, and to have some real substantial nature to them. And it is that fixation within ourselves that binds us to samsara, that or cyclic existence. That's what keeps us turning in cyclic existence. And because it is cyclic existence or samsara, then we have much suffering because there is much suffering in samsara. But actually, what is the nature? What we talk about here then, what we're speaking about is what is the actual nature of those things that appear to our mind. We already know how we think they are. That is just the way they naturally appear to us. But what is their actual nature? There is no true self-nature in what appears. There is not, those objects are empty of what they appear to be, which is real and actually established and substantial. In reality, it's not like that at all. And recently, we had those quotes, those scriptural supports, those very, very pith quotes from the great ancient masters. We had a quote from Guntang Rinpoche. We had a quote from Chandrakirti from the commentary on the 400 verses of the Middle Way. We had the quote from Jetsun Kappa. And then most recently, then also we had the quote that came from the sutras. And so those are all very, very meaningful. And essentially, they're saying the same things. They say them in a little bit of a different way, but the meaning is all there, and the meaning is the same.
yin digitat to the orning thingore. Dichiki chitamche, ken lekibare, ken lekiada, ranging to be here, Maris. Kanji ken lekibatema, teleki ranging your margins. Kiwa any pair ranging to budget 10,000 in your mother. Kiwa ranging to the Giendena, you can let them about Jigungura. Telio Maris. Hela Rale can in Tombar, Hela can rale bade, ranging to be Tomares. Telo Tongi Lagore, Tongi Shena Karikapsa, Kanji Tongi Shena Payo Inzer, Kanji Tongi Tish, Yabuji, Shene Tongi in Nelushe, Yamenche, Dusjena, Kalekale, Zamutombani, Sheve Kengi, any be Hakoe Kengi, any Maranzo Tanda Yula, Nang on the Gala, Yulumini Yovajin Nangora, Dember to Vajinangora, Tin Dember Zingora, Tin Zimbi Kenjene, Mazo Nyomuki Gore. Nyumo wangi dipasa gore dipi wangi lenga pasane dungal nyungore chezan tongi shena rinzi de kend gore zamber me rinzi ko ranjing tu ba de kend udo chile chiden yimba ja ko yena o yurungon khona ngana na jinje da yo mare asam samji ke on digala chik chaba ke da jidan ke da nyuru ro Tata Ratudo. She wouldn't in nature. Kanji Tongishan a Payo in the Mune Ketchmore. Take it Payo Banajin Chagrava. What that is open, young and sometimes Bear Ketchmore down. I also Chana Musum Care. You'll Zemboji. Congress say you'll the two of the young engine to Nangore. In Congress Agore. Chabake, you'll the ninja would you, ninja would you, Lochong Nima Kajan Guruda. You're going to mail that Guda. What that is all? What was you saw something or not? So, bear me some Nimbutan with a package and body.
And so now looking to those quotes. And first, we look at the quote from the sutras, the quote from the sutra requested by Anavatapa, where it says, whatever arises out of conditions is by nature unarisen. If something possessed true arising nature, it wouldn't be such. And so when something comes about in a dependent nature, meaning one thing relies on another, that thing relies on another, then based on that. And so there's this series of reliance and dependence. When it's come about in this way, then when we see what we finally see, it's not that. It's all of those other influences. So there's no thatness to that which we see. It is a combination of many other things. For if it had, for line number 2, if something possessed true arising, it wouldn't be such. So if there was something that was already exactly that from its own side, from the very beginning, in its own nature, meaning intrinsically, it would just be like that. It wouldn't depend on all of those other things. And so a true, something that has true nature to it wouldn't be subject to that process. And so then it goes on, the quote goes on to say, all that arises relying on conditions is taught to be empty. Those who have apprehended this emptiness are conscientious. So it is empty of being that which it appears to be. When one has realized that, one becomes extremely careful and mannered and conscientious. For one, at that point, one has seen through the illusion of the so-called reality, and seeing through that, or seeing into the emptiness, or the lack of a real inherent arising nature, a lack of inherent nature, one sees the emptiness in it. And having seen the emptiness in it, then that which causes conflicting of emotions, negative emotions to arise, has been cut, that's been severed, that's been overcome. So one no longer has afflictive emotions. But when we look at them like they're real, and we react to a situation like it is real and personal, then when we regard it as real and very personal and very existent, this causes conflicts of emotions, turmoil, a lot of inner turmoil, because we fixate to it as something that we have to deal with, something we have to overcome, something that's really happening in that way. And therefore we get emotional about it. We have rising emotions. When we're in an emotional state, we act out in ways that through emotional upset, we are reactive and we create negativity and harm. And this is also called negative karma. And then the result of this, or the consequence of this, is to bring about suffering and harm. So it's very, very key that we realize and learn to reinvestigate things so that we see they're empty of what they seem to possess, meaning it's not that way. And when we see that it's really not that way, then there won't be anything to attach to. And therefore we don't get hooked. We don't get hooked into reaction. And then by nature, actually very naturally, we will just become very, very conscientious. So again, not being deterred or swayed by all of the emotional storms, we become very calm and very conscientious about our ways, because when we've seen that what appears to our mind isn't really like that, what happens is now the object of our anger is no longer there. The object we used to attach to in a way that it was an object of our anger doesn't hold that for us anymore. So the object of our anger is gone. And that beautiful object that first attracts us and maybe we lust for and crave, which we'll find out after a few days anyways is going to change, and our feelings won't be the same about that one that we were so initially attracted to. We'll see that actually we change our, ideas and our relationship about that. So we find out actually that we change anyways, and it's not, that beautiful, wonderful thing we thought it was in the beginning anyways. But in this way, we cut that off at the pass. When we see that it is empty of any intrinsic beauty or passionate nature, then already we don't attach to it in that way. Sue, Densala.
Pechata de Lonil Tao, Lonilina, Uma.
Oh, lasso.
Umena, Ta
Kerange.
Uma, oh, Ume Jaja Yenemena, Zamotomba Nidra. Take back Kaboshi, Chick Hakuna, Pendoch in the Gajere, Tazu, Jim Mare, Lelavo Mare. What in the Galata, Muni, Maranzo. Yundung, Yagin to Sunguya. Yundung also sometimes to Gala, you'll not to the la. Yang Yang sometimes what is, not to the condition Angidu. What not so Nanga Shinjita Yomaris. Yota Yorit, the Nanga Najin Yomars, Kachati Chigota. Remember me see the method. You not so Nang on the Gala, you win your Nangidua. Sutu to Kirkan Bay, you'll Koran la Bay, Gachakata by any bay, you'll win it. Hiela Matubas origin, Nangongdua. What a teo Marilla Gore. The Najio Maris. You thought it? Tanya Diore, Punsoton Yore, Tanya Tulan Yore. You thought the Chitan Yores.
Tani dan Kunzoptan.
Punzoptun Yore, Tanya Tuan Yore. What that? You thought it? Do you thought it? Tanya to Yodan, Kuzu to Yodan Karzana, Chili Chitancheni. Then in June, said the Shay and the Gala, Ninjabudua. Yodama said Mother Shay and Udua. What a tea, Tiago, what a catchambore.
And so, however, you know, to come to perceive that emptiness nature is something that's not easy. Actually, it's quite difficult to really come to ascertain that. And I myself spent, you know, just when it comes to studying the middle way philosophy text, spent 2 years dedicated to just those texts on that subject. That was the study for, you know, for 2 years. So it's very, very hard to come to understand it and ascertain it. But there's that holds great value for one if you are able to stick with it and work very hard and come to ascertain this. Because when you get this, it's very, very valuable, very worth it. And so my own teachers, Geshe-la said his own teachers would constantly offer the same advice. His teachers would say, continually investigate the difference between the way things appear, and then look again. Look more into that appearance and investigate into what's really behind that appearance. And so first, that's what we do. Just a basic look. Just look out and make an assessment. How do things appear to me? What do they seem to be? And we will see that they seem to be very solid and real and just like they are. For example, a chair, a lamp, a table, it seems like that's what they are. But then don't stop there. Think, well, how is it really? And then when we say something is not true, has no true existence, that's their real nature, no true existence. And so we continue to look at this. Okay, well, it looks very real from its own side, actually. These things, these lamps and tables and so forth, they look like they're not depending on anything else, that they're a standalone object, that they are what they appear to be, that they are what they are. And that means that they're not dependent in all of these other ways. Actually, how are they? What is the real truth behind this falsehood that we're seeing? And the real truth is that they're established by conventions, and they are relatively existent. That's the way it really is. They are reliant on many, many, many factors. They are not standalone objects or things that appear to us. They're reliant on so many other things to come to us, appearing in the way that they do. And this is a really, really beautiful way to think about things in our surrounding. It's really expressed so beautifully when we think about it.
다 기서 전주에 전주의 쇼로가 니슈 생각보다 들어봐라 때렸다. 지들 통도 쉐바다스인데 디지털당 뺀닝지버래. 대다 군단을 보지 송겨도 뺀 잡아래. 찍바래. 이 주군 딱고 온 직다단테니 단다지까지 아니 주고 콜레인 거로 양데시 얘기 오늘에 디가라 양교 맞아 살주로 버래.
And so also there was this quote this week that will come, that came from the way of that comes from the way of the Bodhisattva, the same text that we are now studying. However, it comes later in the text, and so when we get to it, we'll speak more about it, and we will already have been talking about it now, but it will become very clarified when we come to it again. It's verse number, I'm just looking it up. In some books, I know in Geshe-la's text, it's 26. In my text, it's 25 in the Padmakara. And so here is the text, here is the verse. In Geshe-la says that it is very, very similar to the verse we just had from Guntang Rinpoche. And it says, appearances of seeing, hearing, and perceiving as they come to us are not being negated here. It is the conception of them as truly existent that is to be reversed, since this is the cause for suffering.
미기 통역이 원보, 세르포, 마르포, 주 간에 미기 통역이 가게요 말이에요. 질터 통도 쉐바다서도 아니 나웬 장님부터난다 냠바터난다 장부터난다 되기도 가게요 말이에요. 수소를 시자 연대 아버지 이기 넘버 10에 시엔데게 시자돼야 가게요 말이에요. 질터 통도 쉐바다 니닌가 퍼자민데 신도 그래서 가게요 말다스 카레 가거래 가야 되더니 디니 둥알 기르기르베 마란소 낭줄텔라 아니베 렘버는데 덴진 율데 아니베 렘버는데 봐 율데 아니베 추투도 줌되게 율데 랑은 줌되게 정아선 징기어레스 렘버는 징기어레스 디 렘버는 짐베 기행기 아니 율데 아니베 닝지부지 율문에 추투도 연되게 지나다 텔레 차제니 차바키 거래. 아니 유 당sem케야들 유히도 뭐지 추투바지 이도 뭐지 돈이 아니 당sem키 거래. 이 차단키 거래. 렘버즈메 덴진데기 차단키 거래. 제가 렘버 엔 디니 둥알 유기we 렘버 똑바 독자 인생 중도 렘버 똑바 세데가라 렘버즈메 덴진들이 덴진데 또 우레스 너야라 가르거래. Zamo tombani tendel machina enti lo tu maris sungdoa ke jemur doa de ngazo rungal mindo kenjan dichi de taungoni men lucire rungal dugi mena da rungal do na te ngargina jena rungal tong pegin rugro
And so it says here in the first line, appearances of seeing, hearing, and perceiving as they come to us are not being negated here. So that things look red or white or big or small or good or bad, that's not being negated here. That things appear to us in that way, that they look like that, is not being negated. So the things that appear to our eye consciousness, the forms that we're seeing in this way, this is not being negated. So as it says, appearances of seeing and hearing, so the things we hear as well, but also perceiving. So even the way our mental consciousness, our mind is perceiving things, this is not being negated. Again, we're talking about the Madhyamaka, the middle way view. This is not being negated here. So what is being negated? what is being negated, as it says here in the third line, it is the conception of them as truly existent. That's what's being negated. So the way that it looks to us is real, untrue, truly existent. That's being negated. Our fixed notion that that is the way it really is also being negated. So as it says here, the conceptions of them as being truly existent, that's what's being negated. Our fixation to sounds, appearances, and perceptions as being true and real, that's what is being negated. And it's because that it's based on our involvement in a situation that we feel is so solid and real and very, very personal that we become, first, number one, we become attracted. There is some real beauty in that gem, or maybe if it's, you know, a person, someone who's really handsome or really beautiful, we really find trueness in that, and then it's based on that we become attached and we want that. Or on the flip side, when something appears repulsive to us or undesirable, then we don't want it, we push it away. We have some aggression or hatred to it. Rather than a liking, we have a disliking. And all of that liking and disliking is based on the fixation of there being anything real and true to like or dislike. And so the same thing comes, that's how attachment and aversion come into play. And so in the fourth line, it says that that is to be reversed, since this is the cause of suffering. So that's what needs to be turned back. We need to turn this back. We need to really avert this and turn it back. And how do we do this? We do it through an understanding of the emptiness in those objects that we become attached or repulsed by, those things we like or dislike. And we do that through seeing that they are of a dependent arising and very interdependent nature. There is no realness in and of themselves. And actually, the realization of the lack of intrinsic existence of something or its interdependence is really like medicine for those who do not want suffering. If one does not want suffering, this is like Amrita. Amrita being like a wonderful elixir to clear away any difficulties. And that's what the realization of the lack of intrinsic existence is. It is like medicine for those who want to dispel or avert suffering.
Number two, Rajin de Sal de Mania Pade, and it tendel Hagwal Tene, that the Rajin de Kedua. Kedua, Rajin, Zember Rajin de Kedua. Yurmuni Yuba. Sutu the young Rajin de Kegrua. The Kegro the Pena Ji Pumbatabuinada, Kawatabuinada, me. Kibujina, Kibiti, Zember Zimbe, Rajin the Kegir, Zember Rajin the Kegir mother, Kibu the Kegimido. Dajik Kegmares Yadi. Kibuina, da Kawainada, Pumbaina, take Kegmares.
Karikhamare, the Dakji.
Daji the Kegmares. Rajin go Mimbesing Zunda, Rajin go Gumares. Dajin the Digre, Raji Tiny to your race. Kuzu to your race. Daji. Oh, the Kegmares. Jata, Yotade, Jegi means some lammer loses Sunda. Tiny to mean some G, Pumpazi, Kibuzi, Kazazi, mean some G or mother. Nazo Nana Jinji, Yulmuni Yondekanji, Pe Tutu Yondekanji, Kerkama, Pe 생생지 가서 로 차르기도 어때 때나신지요 말라가 그래 이ppe 미스버게 좀 더다 두다 오마기 유문 유에데 나데당 디나와 낭나신지 연데긴라 개버는 제두고면도
Dingoma di samsampa
senza
menche.
티 개버된
Pare?
제두고 말해
Uh,
붐바다 붐바 윤문이 여바다당 붐바세데 zu르드 개버된 제치고 말해 다 오마 탈기르에 제한테 개버치기도 와 붐바세데 닥지디지 애니 가서 낭줄더라 애니 배 균열이
And then we turn to the quote from Guntang Rinpoche when it speaks now about establishing or realizing that lack of intrinsic existence or emptiness or interdependence, where in this verse it says, in searching for the essence in the view, it is not found. Not being found, thus it is refuted. Since there's no basis of designation, it follows that what one is left with is mere nominal labels. So when one searches for any true existence in an object, under examination, any true existence falls apart. And one comes to see that things are not real in the way they appear to be. Their reality, their realness is not in the initial way that it outwardly seems to be. There is no take it, whatever is under examination, a vessel or a pillar or an individual. When the way they appear is not the way they really are. And this is all, again, according to the middle way philosophical view. However, the middle way view doesn't say there's no basis of designation to examine. They're not saying there is no red to examine to see if there's any redness in red. They're not saying there is no vessel in front of me to now dissect or analyze, logically analyze. So they do not deny the basis of designation. So whether it's a person or a form, object, whatever we are examining, what they are saying is there's something more to look at. And what they are saying it is empty of or lacks true existence of is being as it appears to be. And that's a very, very, very important point. Because in the three lower schools, the Vaibhashika, Satantrika, and mind-only school, the Chittamatra schools, they have relative truth. They have something that's relative truth or ultimate truth, but they don't speak about this aspect of things having the nature of appearing and yet no true existence. They don't even, if it's not something that is real and authentic, they just throw it out. They don't talk about it. And so that's the difference here, again, with the middle way school. What the middle way school, the Madhyamakas, find fault in is the appearance mode. And that's what they point a fault at.
Yeah. 다들 윤두 삼당과 내가 전부 다 디스kan가 간상에 되게 룽kan가 내지 양양도 삼당과 배 개천버렸다. 다 룽도서 또서 수준들의 티 양양도 삼당나 logi samdana deni pendo yongure.
So these very pith quotes here are quotes that would benefit you greatly if you could go about your activities and your experiences while thinking about the instructions and information in the quotes, always examining the this contradiction between appearance and reality, that which all of these scriptural supports are explaining. And so Geshe-la said, if you write them down, writing them will help, so write them, and also then more than occasionally, on a very, very regular basis, read them and reread them.
다 samdana pe ke chembori. Samlo yani yando samdana o teni samdana re o didi insar sande neba mana ragre. Chigre te pendo yare.
So because thinking actually about them too, so reading them is one thing, but then always bringing the points into personal reflection and really contemplating the points, mulling them over, thinking about them, let them, roll, in your mind, and just kind of, really think about them, because it's then you'll read something and you'll have like an aha moment, an ascertainment of something that wouldn't come about without the self-reflection from your own personal side. This is what's going to bring you many new ascertainments.
두 시대다 중 나가 징하지어래 점된데 배 세부승요래 되게 다 맞아 삼단에 돈달러 승으로 마다 삼로 마당 게질때 펜도 연구 말아 아니 ngu물로 그 자시 티칭인데와 이름 신세교 자시 티칭인데 티칭 리피게서 배 미시베 첨부지래 junteana sabusungdo otat ju ani umajiga bendewa te pe misiwa ki salfusungdo ani chunju tanda de chunju thi de salfudwa otat tesukanga deje samdana tende rajin sia de kandi jiminde hagure.
And so because, we think about, di junga sanati omagi junga.
Oh, that is ume jung sheji chadiore.
So these, in particular, these quotes, these 5 scriptural supports that we've had so far, really illustrating what it means to have real self-nature or be free from any true existent self-nature. So we see these points in these 5 profound and very pith verses in the scriptures, and also the Buddha, so in the sutras. So the Buddha himself spoke about this. But if we don't think about it, if we don't think about what's written there, how would that help an individual if they don't really think about it? And so that's why it's very, very important. So for example, the 400, the commentary on the 400 verses of Ariadeva. So we had that quote from Chandrakirti, and we've had quotes from Nagarjuna, and also from Jetsun Kappa. Also from this commentary, from the middle, Sashi.
Sashi teaching in Dewa, Sashi
From the root verses, so Jetsun Kappa's quote here about the search for any essential existence or non-existence. This quote came from Jetsun Kappa's commentary on the fundamental verses of the Middle Way on a text from Master Nagarjuna. Very, very, very profound. So we have some really very pith instructions leading us here.
다 대속한가 송이 두제기 융세지 차로 다 송이 세대 송방이 세야데 라진기 두베 동와 라진기 마두바텔라 동니 시거와 라진 시디가라 다 대기니 그정 보서다 우메룰라 라진 추투도 두바 랑원을 두바 율문을 두바 꼬아직바르 대속한가 hienla mateu tu bazena te chikpa chikya chagota desukanga ko achik bali gore.
And so all of these scriptures and quotes are explaining and elucidating what it means to be empty of a true established existential nature. This is their emptiness. And what is their emptiness? What are they empty of? What is this emptiness we speak about? They are empty of any natural existence, meaning intrinsic existence. This is what it means to be empty. And so we can say empty or free of self-nature, or not the way, not in the mode of their appearance, so be lacking a mode of being empty of the way they appear to be, being empty of any self-nature, being free from, these are all synonymous. This all means empty. This all means emptiness. Something that is reliant upon conditions. This is something. So all we're talking about here is emptiness. It's being said in a little bit of different way, but that's what emptiness, that's what an object is empty of.
Yeah, that repeat countries to go race to gala that sendel tale to be the repeat gap tendel kit disease there that tongi to jeriba yenamena ripa mambu or yeta ta namwe namzingi ripa ze so ze and then ripa mambu or the ten on it's also the tendel ripa the repeat gap sendel tenzi se the repeat gabozi gore that tendel sidigala tendel de la any qua sum yung gore. So tendel la qua mo tra sum yore ta. You can tendel chiche. And chada chajengi tendel niche. Mincha tayo get tendel the sum.
Ani nipa, ani contrary?
Chada chajengi tendel. Cha se de chajen tuni jagorwa. Chajen tuni cha. Chal tuni chajen zari. Tudugi tendel tereta.
And so there are many, so now we can, so those are some scriptural supports and instruction on this very subject. And then there are ways of logical reasonings, of examining something through, analyzing something through logical reasoning. And there are many different forms of reason that can be applied to our examination. But the king of all logical reasonings is said to be interdependence, dependent arising. And when it comes to things being interdependent, there are three categories of things being interdependent. And that is being dependent on causes and condition, being dependent on possessing parts, and being dependent based on being labeled. So the concepts and labels.
You can tell say the theatre, Tunta Gigantuar, Chata Mani, Uma Papartota, Chipachigare. You can tell the Co Carsa Carsagora. Duce Tendel Siada, you can tendel Siada. You can send in Jumade, DJ Tendel Sing is around DJ Sidicala, Tape, DJ Sidicala, you let and Dibulet and you do Stagorwa. You saw Tana, you saw Tana and Dibuki to Gorwa. You saw Matana and Dibuki to go Marwa. Dibu Makena could you go Marwa? Dibukena
Kale, didn't Dribu Makena?
could you go Marwa? You mean Togumarwa. Pu Makena, I mean Togumarwa. Injimija, I mean Tola Puki Guda. Pume in some gear, Amachagmida.
Oh, lasso.
What a tenagine. Cheta Rang Tumo Main Bedande in Zande Kiagi, Niva Young Angela, any goose.
Rang.
Tumo Main Bed, Dibukiag, Niva Young Angela, Yusigore.
Oh, okay.
What is that? You can send it to the Jika killing or in Juranda. Send a raparitos, Rakshodri. Chetamani, Dodepan Sanzamba, Kanga killing or that is Tanju de killing or the Sendel Tamo killing over, then the Rapa killing.
Umapa.
Umape Rapare, the Sendel Rapare.
De young and killing it.
Killing. Chezan, Mazu Nekasan Jumba. Tumta Ome Stawate, Stawa Rapare Maza, Stawa Tardu Tamo de Mares.
Oh, lasso, yeah.
Stawa Norga Mares. Stawa Rakpares. What an agent Tendel de la Tendel Rapa. Tendel and Tamu Shindu Tawas the Sumchigore.
And so the first category, meaning thing dependent arising, being interdependent, being dependent on causes and conditions, is a category of interdependence that all of the four tenet systems we have been discussing accept and entail. This is the coarsest in the grossest form of interdependence, meaning very obvious. This is the coarsest, and all four of the tenet systems do indeed entail this. And so, what it means to be dependent on causes and conditions meaning that things come about due to being a composite, needing causes and conditions to be complete, and then there is a result. However, if the causes and conditions are not complete, there will not be a result. So when all the causes are there, there's a result. If there is a result, it means all the causes were there. And so I requested an example of something like this, where all the causes wouldn't be together and thus there would be no result. And so, for example, a mother is called a mother in dependence upon having a child. If a woman doesn't have a child, do we call that woman a mother? So no, what the causes and conditions that need to be complete in order for there to be the concept or construct of a mother means that there has to be the condition of having a child. And so otherwise there is no concept of mother. If there is no child, there is no concept of mother here. Or if there hasn't been a child, born or in the family adopted, then there it is not mother. And so so this is very coarse. Tene rang drupe ke yanker chep de kola yapo trimendo gonda kesla rang drupe rang drupe ke
dire ndibu ke wala yutela ndibu ke niba gugorwa jaza yu dan kenzer ni ngore ta kendela ani yang kepersum che gore karsa yuame biken ni ani nibiken ani mita biken nsde kendela yuame biken mita biken nibiken ken sum changore ken sum she gore di pe ke chmbor ngaso yu kenze de la gorwa ta 디 그 펜바 첨부 두고 왔다 가서 요다 페나 뉴구 유원에데 사번데 뉴구 유원에와 사번데라 아니페 요메 비켄지 창고래 미다 비켄지 창고래 니비켄지 창고래 인지미지 미타바 인젤라 다 요메 비켄데게 가르카가거잖아 아니 지든 쳬바부 가거다 간지 요메 비켄데게 지든 쳬바부 요 마레젤라 거른 지든 쳬겐지 지든 쳬겐지 라왕주도 투즈 데수근 지든 쳬제디 요 마레라 거래
디 요메 비켄
요메 비켄 루이 요알이 중요 마레스 가르스나
루아메바
루이 요알 루이 삼르타네 다 치롤바데서 텔라고라 지든 왕준 데게노 왕주 루이 요알 강가투브로 왕주기 삼르 좀 데게 렐라고라 요메 비켄데게 삼 왕주기 루이 요알 중요 마레스 그 계획이 니바지 거레스 인지미지 고라나 히야 니바 거레스 미타바지니 거레 인지미지 미타바지 거레 따발랑 계획이 마레스라레 인지미지 미타바지 거레스 어느 미타바 인제게 계획을 미타바키는 어때 민제 미타바 인제게 계획 말다스 그 투모마이 그 계획이 니바 거레스 그 니비켄즈들라고도 간제 요메 비켄기 따비 유가 거래
that's
요메 비켄디기 따비 유가 유타바 인데간 리부케 메바데 삼타 기기 오마르zel라 거래
디 요메 비켄디
유타바 따비 유 따바 따바레 유엄 윤더고 말와 어다티까 거래 아니 미타 비켄데기 아니 베 디까 거래 가르사와레
디 탄다 파르투기오나
라
탄다 파르투기오나 인지켈라기오나
강 यानी केन सुम जाशो ने कपची
लासो
दूसला ना दिगदो को केगी युथुम मयिंबा कोराना तुम मयिंबि निबा 거레스 कें데라 तुम मयिंबि निबा지 거레스 켄 숨데 말라베체 코람베 요텔레 미다바이나 고 간지 아샴 때문에 구슈 때문에 설루마 계획이 니바요 말와 설루마라 설루메 사번데 구구다 오렌지 고랑기 사번데 때 거와 콜레 설 오렌지 때문에 구슈케 니바 용구야요 말와 투모마 임바 수수 데 계획이 니바요 바데 셰거리 인게 니비켄세 디가라
디 투모마 임베
근데 겐데니 상고가 딱 뭐네 디지디가랑 아주 디제기 답에 덴델 데시발라 빼 양코랑 개주망부 시구다.
Mm-hmm. And so looking at this first, again, we're looking at causal interdependence. So it's something that comes into being based in reliance or in dependence on causes and conditions. And so when it comes to conditions, there are three categories of conditions. There is the unwavering condition, the condition endowed with potential, and the condition of permanence. And so, but usually we speak of both of these. There are causes and conditions. So the result must be possessed in the cause. So the causes and conditions must possess the result. For example, the cause of a flower is contained within the seed. So when it comes to causal interdependence, the cause must be present in the so that potential of the flower must be possessed within the cause, which in this case is a seed. So the seed does possess the cause. So a seed, therefore, can be in this first, is part of this first category of causal interdependence. And so also then it must have the like the particular potential as well, or what is also called the uncommon or the special potential, a specialized potential. And that's we can illustrate that by the result or the potential of an orange does not lie within an apple seed. If you plant an apple seed, you will not get an orange, for the potential is not present in the apple seed. And so that's another, so that's another example. But when we talk about things like causes and conditions needing to come together or be a compound, there's just so much actually we can say about this.
다 차다 찾은 게 덴델들이 덴델 딩들이다 참모들이 신도 참모도 말에 참 딩들이 다때 라기 봐서 라기 봐 우마 라기 베다디 켈링 거래 다때 뭐니 다디 디진 디마제 강갈 캡 거래
두체 당중
디마제 용솔에 캡 거래 랑가 차실이 되는 두바스디가라 다 주탐절리 캠데긴지 순고래.
And so the second category of interdependence is being interdependent based on having parts, having sections or parts. And so actually these three types of interdependence can be understood to be, the first one again was very coarse or very evident, very easy to see. The second, and then the second is finer, a little bit harder to see, not as evident. And the third, that which was names and concepts, is more refined, more hidden, not as easy to see. So the second being interdependent based on parts is the middle, is that middle section of one can see it if one really looks, but it's not as outwardly evident. And this is the interdependence that, so we have the two levels of Madhyamaka that the lower school of Madhyamaka do assert and do, entertain and work with. And this covers as well, when this particular reasoning or understanding of interdependence based on having parts or sections actually can be applied to all material and immaterial phenomena. It covers all.
Teni ta minkyang tayo tsumki tendel ziyade uma tangyuri doyadari ta tendel shira chamure petaka chamure ta thardu de te chadiyore.
So dine geshila di dringi tendril de korla de pechik pechik tona
minkyang tayo tsumki tendel.
No di nipa di.
Oh, chada chajengi tendel de. Tati chajen zidigala ta bumpa tabu ina chajen chadiyore jab tang towa tang chudo tang kanga zomne te bumpa lagorwa. 다 차시디가라 분비 차시리리 마세용데 그 차데 dordu고도 근데 차데 저도 만아도 강파라파 유용수 조번다 미지라 미서드 미 라거레 내니 그 차시 쳔로디가라 디 당이던 dordu고도 차데 차진저데다 차진저데 찰트니 자고 찰생인데 차진을 뜨니 자고 그 뜨둑데 뜨니 에 숭도 뜨니 두바다 뜨둑이 텐들 뜨니 두발 텐두다 때베 세부용 거 때니
노라소
차데 차진세들가라 그 뜨니 자고 말도 마테와데 랑캬와지 매 용구도 가그도 데 개버지도 와데.
And so the second based on parts and assemblage, again getting a little bit more finely tuned here. So now we can examine an object being existent because it was assembled by different parts, and we can dissect those parts. So it's assembled by parts and it arises or comes into being. And as we disassemble those parts, then it goes out of being, that we had called it or had a concept of starts to go away as we take these parts away. So for example, we could take the classic example is like, the ritual vessel of a bumpa. It's a very specialized vessel that's used in Buddhist rituals. And so very, very specialized, and it is recognized as a bumpa. But a bumpa has a certain kind of a bottom to it, and then it has a round vessel to it. It has a thin neck. It has a certain handle and things tied around it. It has a spout. And when all of those things are together, in reliance upon them all being together, then we agree that it's a bumpa, and we call it a bumpa. But when you start to take those things away, take away the spout, take away the top where the water goes in, take away that kind of bulbous aspect that holds the water, and you don't have a bumpa anymore. And you can have all still the same parts, but it's only when they're assembled do we agree that it's a bumpa, that we agree on that concept. And the same could be said for an individual. When we think about an individual has a body, has legs, has arms, has a head, has fingers, all in varying, shapes and degrees. But that's what we call an individual, a body, and an individual. When we start to take away these things, and if we were to put them all in, different piles, then we would no longer have an individual. And so we can do this with houses and tables, but what we need to understand is that it is about parts being assembled. And it's because certain parts are all assembled and all complete that we now have a concept of this being something. But as soon as you start to disassemble it and take those away, then away goes that concept too. And so this very much shows reliance. And so it's a particular kind of interdependence that Geshe-la says also exists. We can study this more, this particular kind of interdependence based on reliance on parts as well in the texts.
Oh, thank you. Labiade, Sungade, ta Minka Tayasum Gitendel. Tate was a Tanda Pejana, American President Fejagina, Tanda Joe Biden, President Lagumido. Joe Biden, Tanda President Lagumido, Tanda Lagumido. Tanda Cob Tanya Jendajido, elected President Lagdo. Tako Kadu President Chagre, Jama Chila Tampe Taringishi Jadoko, Temdel Kangachin, Tini Korangang, a president in Samba, Migun is only a president of the just a tiny chill tudo. Tiny Tayala. Minkan Tayo some say the money number. The president wanted to be in the, who Aman Ushalu Maraman Kidigune, President Yongudo. Minka Tayo some say that they taken a quachak chaware.
And so now we come to the third category based on concepts and labels, and this is the higher school of Madhyamaka Prasangika Madhyamakas really are more focused in this way. Their view uses this interdependence. So they come about something's emptiness through using this type of logic, interdependent logic. And so, for example, in other words, that things are just nominally, things have no realness in and of themselves of being what we can conceive them to be from their own side, but we have called them that. We have labeled them that. So as an example, Geshe-la said, right now, we don't call Joe Biden President Biden. We call Joe Biden President-elect. And again, this is a label, this is a concept. He is called President-elect. But after a little time goes by and it gets to exactly the right time, gets to January 20th, 2021, then we can call him President Biden. And he can say, I am the president. Now I am President Biden. But really, where does the presidentness, where is that presidentness? There's no real presidentness outside of a nominal label. Meaning on the 19th, he wasn't a president, and all of a sudden on the 20th, he was. So that isness of something comes from merely a concept and a label. There's no real president in President Biden. And not only that, what if that, the vote had gone different? What if the Electoral College and, what if the vote had gone different? Then again, he wouldn't be called a president. So again, this is understanding that things have come about interdependently based on what we have named them and have concepts of.
Mingyang tayo siya de kwaji dua tigini ragore ngone trasala kempudang omzedang gikutu su pejagre Democrat and president Tachi, Gornel that is Pejaya, the Ning Jibudwa. Me, Tanya Tamo de Pemisiva. Toso Kavoyare. Nuguli, suddenly Nuguki is a Kiwade, Kiwasevade, Tanya some the your race, Tanya some your race Sundwa, Sagi Kangi, Nugulesa, suddenly Nuguki Resia the Kiwade, Amale Puzi Kere the Kiwade, Kiwata Tanya some Yamato, Sutu to your Marilagore. Zembaji, Sutubaji. Oh, Kyoto Tangents on the Japas, the Pagi Sat Karsa, John Butapali than Tisunda. Tanya Sam City. That Tanya say the la, any Jirmuchi young, Tanya to Sandela, using some tongue was sumore. Those Cabo de Artiso. Ina Cabo Jaya Marne, Igitin Kurgo, any Gur. Any Samdana Yavore. Any Negab Lemsan, Tiring Fejalon, Tiring Shikir, Samutang Guamare. The Yaniando, the other Logeni, Muti the Samdangwa Chagore.
The Sabundan Nugu gi pe di Mone Ming Takpasam, the Serpo Chomasongan, the Amadang Budi Serpoto.
Couldn't Jibare. Suddenly Nuguchi said the Kewade, Kewa number to buy Omar, Kewa Tangent some jiris. Amalupucha the Kewa number to buy Jamari, Kewa Tangent some race, it said the Chipatonda.
The Amadigi Tanye, Amagi
Amagela Pucha the Kewa Jera. Amalupucha race, Kewade, Kewade. And number two was in Marais Gore. Tanya some jiris. That Tanya the lot young Deshe your tete Juriate what the Kiran Legato Sayore.
So again, what we're looking at is there are many things that we have assigned labels and concepts to that have none of that in and of themselves. This has come from our side, from having this nomenclature and putting it on that thing and putting that concept and assigning that to it. That's what is happening. There is no, for example, if we don't name something a president, it's not a president. Therefore, it never had any real presidentness to it. It only becomes that when we name it that. And that's a concept that that's an understanding we've created and a concept we've created, a designation of an office, so to speak, an office of president. That has, so much has just come from concepts and labels. And Geshe-la said also in the monastery, there was the same thing. You'd have the disciplinarian, you'd have the lamas, you'd have ritual masters, you have the chant master. And we'd assign them those labels. But there's no real chant master in someone. It's a term, it's a label, it's a role, and we've designated it on to them. And in the same way, there is no real sproutness like a sprout, a seedling that comes from a seed. There's no real seedling, birth of a seedling or growth of a seedling that has come. It is not naturally arisen. And the same thing when we speak about a mother giving birth to a child. Again, this is all has come about, it's not naturally existent and arisen, but again, has come out of conditions and labeling and so forth. So we have these conventions that we all agree on in relative truth. We have these conventions. We must understand that there's no real reality from their side in these conventions. We have created these conventions. And Master Jetsun Kappa also speaks about this very beautifully. But this isn't something, you won't read this today necessarily and have like a full and complete understanding of this. This really takes a while to see the interdependence in these three different categories in all that you see around you. This takes a little while. So don't feel like, oh, I can read it today and get everything I need out of what I read today or hear today, because this takes more continued study. So Geshe-la says to really stay at it, to continue to try to understand all of these very, very, from the course to the very subtle points of how things are interdependent and not truly real and existent. And Geshe-la also said that things are conventions in three different ways. There are three characteristics or three bases of something being called conventional. And we get more into details here. Geshe-la said he would like to send that to me first, I'm assuming in Tibetan, and how, so that it's a little bit more clear to me so I can be more clear about it. And he laughed and he said he's going to be sending me a lot of homework.
Sashi teacher Nandini ji are. Keche rang tsingi tuba jobala kom cheves. Tad ngazo keche siya da. Ngazo kompana na rang tsingi yulungoni ko pe yulungoni kendegen rang tsingi tuba kendegen ji pe kombashu chumbu yares. Mingi tanya wang jabal jo kawe lo mideyang. Ming zamji kerezda ngazo lo chugo mare. Hipuli niyores jozu nile. Ngamala mithenas kadana rangi tsingi tu bikena zembar tu bikego zembar tu bikeva ina ini nami ne kende ko ye yungura te ne ribithegi midus
andit sen
rangi tsingi tu bikezu dela ribithegi midus ani mingchang samji kede ani pe dile ngamala mithene chimala joba oime bes mingchang tayo samji kya ming samji kya gula oime do te pe oime ki ribitu gute mada lot ti tandada samudang khabo dude ina yang kale komna ti lot ina samute shosu tangu gudus jirmu sungre shordwa di ngone pendo yorda di kiranza yan yang samudang da dine hakure.
And so then there is another quote again from Jetsun Kappa on the fundamental verses of the Middle Way on his commentary there. And this is one that I have here in Tibetan, but I don't yet have translated. So I will roughly tell you what the meaning is here. And Geshe-la said that this is a very, very beneficial quote for us to also understand. And the first line here saying that the way that we see things as being truly arisen is something that's a habit for us. This is something that we're so familiar with, and it's almost instinctual. It's our habit to see things in the way that we do. And when it comes to things not being like that, for example, things being merely designated, labeled like that, we don't think like that. We don't have the familiarity or habit of that kind of thinking or approaching the things that we interact with in our environment. And if something were to have any true characteristic nature of the way they appear, If that were the case, then they would be truly existent. But when we apply logical analysis, we will see that that's not the case. They don't actually naturally, intrinsically possess any of those characteristics. We'll see that that's non-existent. And we will then come to see that we have simply taken them to be thus through different things such as conventions and such as concepts and labels upon them. And if we continue, so Geshe-la says, if we remember that it's been our habit to see things this way, and that we're not built necessarily to see things in the way the logic is telling us to look closer and examine things, if we begin to do that actually, and begin to see how things are either assembled or have causes, or we've designated labels upon them, then slowly, we will become more familiar or create this new habit or this new way of engaging with things in our environment in a way where we can come to see them for what they are, merely labeled, for example. And so actually this is a very, very important quote, just like the other ones, and he's recommending us to refer to them again and again as pith instructions.
That the kitchen sum the diri tiny to trap alare. Around to tap David says so the Mary says so the Nikanga tiny to trap the Ora American ala tiny to trap us Chidani be Yonrachi the Tan they can cheek your race. Tegala Kunzu Bitsemi Nova Mevajigo race.
Oh, di tampore.
The tampore. Tanya to tap at the tampore. Any Kunzu Bitsemi Nova Meva the Nibare. Semi Nova Meva. Semi tape ko Jebajene, Semi Nova Juna, ko Yang Tabachayo Marwa. Then do tapa towel and ruled in Zina. You go the ko Tajitan Dugala, Dulma Bato, Semi Nova Jusan. What that cement of Majuada, Dulikitan and Dula, Seminova Jueo Marwa. What a tenaji. Telayang, Tarun Tegala, Tundam Chichigi, Semimino Pass. Annie Tundam Chichigi. Tundam Chichigi. Seminova Mepajigures. They catch you some sana, tang it you at Chagores.
No, so the Sumpa country.
Tundam Chichigita, Tundam. Tondam Jujiki Tamanda, Papin Yamja Ishigi Kanji Nova Magic Gugures, then a Kunji Tawina, Tanya Bitimin Nagu Mara Yorwa.
Kunji.
Senzamedola Kunji in the Shepa Tamujide.
Really?
The Yorwa. Tela any Yamja Ishigi Nangumarwa. Nyamja ishila kunzu benawa medugala nyamja ishingula kunji kegirwa kunji keyondugala tela tondam joji ki temen no son kunjila wata tende ji ta kanji kiju sum changu war kanji ipe jirmuji mado jenda kheba mambute sungyo marda tangi diyo bitsete te abore
ani susum parela
jirmuji
Lasso, yeah. So
Nina Lemsang Tonta Koya Kabore. It's some young and the tongue in the Nakale Kugri.
So Geshe-la has just explained these three ways that things are conventions, the way we have created these conventions, how they exist. These conventions exist. He's going to send them to me, and then I feel more confident that I could that's what you should, once I send those out, then you can, I feel like, that would be better. I'll explain what he said here about these three. But in any event, Geshe-la said that understanding this, how things exist at the level of convention in these three ways, it's very refined, it's very subtle, it's very hard, it's just not easy. And so don't think that, you should, just hear it once and that's what it means, but rather, again and again, mull this over, contemplate it, because you will come to new understandings and more clear understandings for yourself, and really come to get the meaning. So please, that's what's to be expected. That's the exception, or that's the rule, not the exception. So anyways, these three, roughly translated, this first way that things exist conventionally is that things are widely known. This is something that's widely known to be that. So we could take, for example, someone that we all know, and we call, there are these, two friends or two sisters, Debbie and Mary, and everyone knows them as Debbie and Mary. And so they exist as Debbie and Mary in the convention that everyone knows them as Debbie and Mary. And so that's the first way that it's widely known, that this is a book, or, we all call this a book. This is Debbie and Mary. Secondly, the second and the third, again, I'm really hesitant, because I want you to hear it correctly the first way. The first one, I felt very comfortable that I understood exactly what Geshe-la was saying, and the second the second one, has an element of it that I would rather translate once he sent those to me. And the third one, as well, I think conventionally, I would like to wait until Geshe-la sends those to me. I would feel more comfortable. And he said, it's fine to leave that because it's very complicated, and he will send those.
Yeah, that didn't
And so let's stop there with the formal instruction, and we can leave the remainder of the time for question and answer. So who has a question?
So I'll ask one. So if we get to the point where we understand this, to some level, and we are practicing understanding what we're interacting with on a daily basis from that perspective, is it such that as we continue to do that more and more and more, that it's also kind of a form of meditation where we may end up beginning to realize emptiness from that method?
Ani pana di tendrel ki nyamshak ani kawade hakone pana ngatso di nyunre di nangwa di ngone nang ani nangso mare di neluk shendak re ngatso di nimatakbar ani de nangshen chena dene kale Jema yang ani di tongpa ni ki tope ki tapshi chikyana.
Tedare. Tende nelu yabu sheva yena tongi shela shidagi kebar chimbu chagrwa.
Dene ngune tok ani ngonsu ki tope ki
ngunsum tire. Ngunsum to todigala pe songi petega 통남네 송이 무슨도 또 그거와 무슨도 또 되가나 트rumpe 상기사 말에 버도 왜 코차루 통이 사나 체루 누구 마다 리베 사지신이 대가랑기 고쳐버지다 차고 말다 그 사랑 체루 야로 용거라 가로지네 링이 찌저도 긴 거라지 링이 찌저도 또 용도 갈라 내 상계 생기 차고래 렘바니 찌저도 또나 내 상계 차고래 또 맞아 때 갈라페 섬을당에 배만 보았다
덴바니기
오 렘바니 찌저도
칙절.
찌저도 내 뒤냠도
예.
단다 로바 파파 로바 냠자 받든 떠서 중이마도 군수에 나와 셔그 말와 로바 냠자 받아서 돈은 바이난다 로바제데 상마기게 파파이나 상마기게라 로바 라거라 다에 냠자 받아서 중이마도 동이 도고 알데 동이기 계지 네 뿜바다 까발라서 받되게 로라 난겨 말에
춘이 난기오래. 근데 그 춘이 난기오래.
춘이 난기오래.
알았어.
다 제도블라 야상 누가라 군소비 나와도 강가 철거orde 최진이 나와 차단 철거orde 야 춘이든 나와도 numru고 춘이도 또고 말에. 제도블라 야상도
상게 말라파르토.
상게 말라포도 티 니가라 그 인zen나지 차르고다. 니마 유디가라 나와가 나와 유디가라 니망 매체 가 문바이 세나구나다 니마요 말와 때 인zen나지 차르고다. 저달 로발라 고동 링이 지저도 셰그 니바데 매 인산테와
양케르테
렘바니 지저도 뒤냠도 셰그 니바데 요 말와
라소
상게는 어다 투모이 비키지테라고 그래. 냠자라 유진도 아니베 군섭에 나와 자와 측상지 두고 그래. 군섭에 나와 제진도 중이지 두고 그래. 근데 그 투모만 비키지르데 상게 키지 투모만 바래.
데네 상게라 데네 군섭기 낭와 당
중이 강가용 거래. 나한테 상게 키지래. 오다 빙 맞을 때 두고 있는 거라. 티칼레 마게나 용미다.
And so absolutely this way of integrating this teaching, this understanding, this philosophy into your experience will indeed bring you to an understanding, a realization of emptiness. It will bring you along the way so that you have a perception of the way things truly abide to their true nature, which is emptiness. And so yes, applying this to your daily life as like a practice or a meditation will indeed bring you to the direct realization. And so, but we should understand that once we do perceive emptiness, this is also called the path of seeing. Once we do reach the path of seeing, we continue to clarify. So we have seen emptiness, but we continue to solidify and clarify that experience and that realization to a finer and finer, clearer and clearer extent until we are completely enlightened, meaning Buddhahood. And so there's progress actually. So we do, we do. So there are kind of these different levels until we reach Buddhahood, and we progress until we reach Buddhahood, where we see things exactly as they are, and how actually the two truths become an inseparable union. They are one and the same. And this is a very, special quality also of the Buddha, is that the Buddha can see, things from the having seen the inseparability of the two truths, can still yet see these two truths. And so we have an experience of emptiness through the meditative equipoise of an Arya being, or a path, one that has seen, reached the path of seeing. And when one is in this deep equipoise of the path of seeing, then one is seeing not appearances, but what one is seeing is the Dharma sphere. One is actually seeing that, the actual Dharma sphere. And so that's during meditative equipoise. But then when someone has reached the point where they can sit in the level of that, really just experiencing things as Dharmakaya, Dharma sphere, in the post meditation, then things actually, appearances again, come back to them in the way they were appearing before, like not in meditative equipoise. So, however, with a Buddha is always able to see both, to actually see the actual Dharma nature, the raw material, the raw nature of Dharmakaya and everything, yet at the same time see the relative nature as well. And so what happens is, when we come out of meditate, so when we're in meditative equipoise, the conventional perspective recedes. And when we come back out of meditative equipoise, the meditative equipoise nature recedes. And so at that level, until we become a Buddha, they don't coexist. Just like day and night, don't coexist. When we have light, when there's darkness, there's no light. When there's light, there's no darkness. But again, the Buddhas have these in an inseparable union. They see, the inseparable union of this. So this is really a really incredible feature of being enlightened, is that you can perceive things the way ordinary sentient beings perceive things, and they're the relative reality, a false reality, but you also see the true reality behind that. This is really an incredible feature of an enlightened being, and what an amazing thing for all of us to aspire to. And we all should say, that is what I aspire to. I aspire to being completely enlightened, so I can see the false nature, but I can see through this false nature as well. And we can see that this is something that would be, it's very, we won't accomplish this without some work. We really have to put forth some concerted effort to get there.
And so for someone like me that's on a really, really low level of the development, is one way of sort of measuring whether I'm making progress, looking at my emotional reactions and whether they're decreasing. So in other words, is being able to view reality as empty directly correlated with the decrease in those negative emotions and reactions.
Ani nga nangshin le tang popa nangshin nga ani tse topa mare di tse pe maware ani nga ani pena nge nyamnyen la yarge ani yurme gi hakoya gi chedu ani pena ani nga nimatakpar o di ngone di nangwa di tongpani re di ngone ngansom nangshin re ani jema ani yarge ani dro madro hakoya ani karila tagore pena nge nyamong ani nyungwa ani yuna ani di yang ani yarge yurpe takore pena mitchek ani lunglang ani kejuken la ani lung malangna dene pelcher ani di yang yarge yurpe takore de rebe yela
China ngape kubu ngape 냠렘바 탑자진 근데 삼로긴 당겨 말해. 당 마르겔 펠라고 말다. 포바 거래. 샘로 포바 가져이나 데이케 버려래. 맞죠? 때리 제거해 근데 제 마부 있는데 삼당 거야 거라요 말해. 맞죠? 투무 마임비 맞죠 이글라 상게 리디어래. 시바 코람보 배 살진 리바 시비란진레 티마뇽요 말해. 시비란진레 티마 마슈데 갈라 지마데 루부르아데 코 셀레야 탑시요래 라진이 메디 루부르아 차데 루부르 인디고 코 메아조예요래 와다 냠린 롱아말레 단다 가르송드문도 소하고 그래 에 뉴몽충 가르사 저다 시진 들어와 삼다 뉴몽충 아자가 삼다나 뉴몽 슈충 그래 저다 시진 들어와 저비다데 배 류 나기 까제세 난 잠보 아니 장보 아니 배 납셈 너센 테네메아지 아니 류긴 남기로 나긴 남기로 아니 대소가 지진 들어와 용거래 다 지진 들어와서 저비다데 들이 아니 옴다 녀몽충 알아 삼다 아니 배 옴잡 삼다나 아니 녀몽 라징이 고슝 주다 수사하고 그래 나마 셋지잖아 애니베 룽나기나 다 곰베섭기 디 룽나야 뉴그루 치이나 수수 땡땡 에 곰베타데 퉁거래 땡일라바 마르타 대구 나마 기부담바데 숭숭레 되다 에뉴 시진도 보고 온다 뉴몽충 와서데 빼면서 깨져버려 와다 소소라 다 로카싱물라 수소 잠 니지스다 하고 오면나 다 잠바다 니지스 들라 셈 서로 만다질라이나 레디가라 티니 유아 침바르와 와다 티게데 라 지수이나 제거래 수수 지수이나지나 가와도 콤펠도 누구래
카레라 제수 이랑
랑게 가와라 랑신 수 가와라 이난디그래 쟁기 가와전에 계속 맞지 지수이란잖아 바저기 갈래게 먹어도 소남지 쌓여온 거래 내빠중라 랍전 초섭에 gel라 지수이란 초등화 저승래 이제는 뭐지 백 깨짐버리 되게 돼
And so it's actually we ourselves who can know about our own progress in our practice. And we could look, for example, and compare last year to now, and how, how am I showing up in the world? How am I? What am I seeing in myself? And as it said, a sign of having learned the teachings and really, really learned the teachings is that one's actions and one's words, so verbally and physically, one will be very smooth, just very calm and careful and very, very gentle. One will also be very honest and straightforward, and really pacified. One will be really act in a very, very gentle and curated, careful way, both with body and speech. So with what one is doing and one is saying, one will be very, very gentle. So you'll see it in your actions, and that is the sign of having learned the Dharma well. Now, having integrated the Dharma well and really familiarized oneself with it, the sign of this is that one will have fewer negative emotions arising. And this will just naturally, when one begins to practice and really takes up the teachings, integrates them, then one will naturally, for example, You know, if you come across, you know, come into some kind of conflict, one won't become angry. And so one won't get incensed and worked up and, you know, fly off the handle and so forth. And this is really, really a certain way to tell that you have really integrated the teachings. And so again, integrating the teachings, we'll see in fewer emotions, negative emotions, and having learned well, we will just become very gentle on people. And again, a way to see if you have implemented the teachings is, you know, when there's a situation, are you loving and compassionate? And if you're loving and compassionate, then you'll know there's been transformation. And, you know, also a way to like continue to practice and bring this into one's daily life is so first of all, also, you know, there's a difference between being like inflated and prideful and arrogant in a negative way, and then there's being confident in one as a practitioner. And so you should be confident in yourself as a practitioner, and understand that, yes, there are different levels of practice and realization and so forth, but you should hold a confidence that's not pride, but a confidence in yourself as a practitioner. And remembering that, you know, each and every one of us holds this potential of Buddha nature. We all have the very same potential of becoming enlightened. The seed of enlightenment is within us. This is our Buddha nature. And it's just to what level have we, you know, worked to realize this. But we all hold this perfect, crystal clear, you know, luminous Buddha nature. And so we have to, you know, labor a little bit to realize this, but this is all within the stream of our consciousness. And so you should be confident in that. And so hold a level of confidence about your practice. And as well, when you do well in your practice, feel good about it. Meaning when you've done well, recognize, you know, I did well there. I was patient. I was virtuous. I did the right thing. Recognize that in yourself and recognize that in others, because this is a really, really a very like simple and easy, without a lot of effort, this catapults our virtue and our merit by just recognizing I did the right thing there, you know, good, you know, patting yourself on the back there. There's nothing wrong with it. Rejoice in your virtue, rejoice in others' virtue. Master Jetsun Kappa has said that when it comes to the activity that is not a lot of work but is very meritorious, this is about rejoicing in virtue. So therefore rejoice in virtue. Did that answer, Laura? Did that answer for you?
Oh, yes, that was beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
Anyone else?
윤도 텐시 타고도 빼미스게 좀버다. 템바다 시징이 빼미스베 수수 맞아 윤도 로갈탄다 칼라자고도. 때나진 템바다 시징이 우구그래. 때는 수수 너도 빼 뉴뉴차그래. 빼야버래.
So just like we pay attention to our body and we're aware when our body has become hungry, right? And then we eat, we're very aware of our sensations of hungriness. And right away, we, you know, do what is called for. And in that case, it means taking nutrition, taking food. We should hold the same kind of awareness in our mental activity, our physical activity, our actions. We should hold an awareness of where we are. For example, with what we're doing, what we're saying, how we're doing it. We should hold just the same amount of vigilant awareness on ourselves in terms of how we are conducting ourselves. That would be very, very beneficial. And constantly, Geshe-la said, don't let go of that. Constantly be the guard, be your own guard, and mindful of what your focus is and what you're doing. And that's very, very important. It keeps us on track. And so then we notice when we have made a mistake. So this is about noticing. It is about being focused on trying to do the right thing, but noticing when we're getting off track and noticing our mistakes and then setting ourselves right again. And so very, very important.
And noticing when you make a mistake, tying it back to this teaching on emptiness is like, when you've made a mistake, it's because you've lost the view, basically.
아니 대 kapsu dene ngone di shejin 아니 pe trakpoyana dene neutral nge norsong 아니 de 아니 karichene 아니 norsong 아니 ngatawa lasong 아니 dindres 아니 samlotangna pena di tawa di ngone di pena di ngone di lunglong pe yul di penang shedang di yuldi di shenang kejuken di ngone demba mare di tawa ani lasong neutral ani norsong ani jira begenwa
시 덴바다 시진 야부지 덴바 이나르와 당어서 경험만이 당어서 다 너툴에 곰빠슈 좀 보러와 너툴이 용거리대 덴바다 시진 때이나 너툴이 원진 투그리 사치 닌 원진 투 닌은진도 숨은진다나 제마 주조제당 때는 너르고였다 섬서 아니 민주버지 로데 끼그와 릴라보 렘상데 베 가르소레 맞아 가르소레 디 렘상 기르와 당에다 가버리대 칼레칼랭 기르와 누구리대
라소
데 시작게 쳔버리
samla yang di sopoto gyore yenla dene deyang ani diang ani sigiyona drenshe tangpo ani mena di tawa ani tawa lana dene diang ani bayer
데 밤에 차도 밤에 차그래 데데 덴시나 바요 용거래 덴시면나 바요 용 말에 밤에 차도 그래 대시부 대 발전 조지 발대디 저기 숭지여서 했다 이 누네 딘도 된다 시시 바요베 왕베고는 따도 숭시 민천 뒤숨 양다양 심기 길라 따버자세 숭도
라소 아니 시칸 당포 카리 양게
된다 시신 바요베스 덴바 시신 바요이나 수수 룽아기 왕보고데 담보지 숭도 그래서 거래 디 수에나 니마 인생 강가라는데 야나양도 덴바다 시신기 짜라지 그래서 아니 디인디가라 짜라지네 랑게 심기라 까티 나타지 땅거레스 심기라 뉴몽 깨게 민데 에게와 간데 찍은도 게와 치데나 에게와 치바달라니 베 주시라지 소시 미미 위겐답 텔라 통바니 랑원이 모토밥 때 탐제 덴바르메 바레 삼삼치니 강게와 제제 게와 소자나 뭐야 랑게니 베 랑야 덴바르메 바두 삼다나 게와도 투춤부 좀 톱춤부 차고 와래 시부지게 쳔버르 본졌음
So first of all, there are a few reasons that we could kind of go astray and kind of fall off the wagon or just kind of go astray. And Geshe-la said that one of the reasons is just because, we're so on autopilot. This is so our default mode to act in certain ways. And so we fall back into them so easily. It's what we've habituated for so long. So it's really almost like our default mode. And so we fall back unless we really apply great conscientiousness in our watching, over what we ourselves are doing. And applying that really strong, watchful, and guarded and really conscientious behavior, unless we have that, it's so easy to fall back into that old default mode. That's why Geshe-la says he's always saying apply strong, vigilant conscientiousness, be alert and watchful and guarded in your activities, because we fall back so easy. And not only that, applying conscientiousness and being kind of our own guarding ourselves, we'll be able to identify when we have fallen off. If we don't have that, we won't even notice that we fell into default mode and we're, doing what we're doing. And so basically what it comes down to, like, when we are having conscientiousness, then we're heedful. Okay, so when we have strong mindfulness and are really guarded and watching, then we'll be heedful. When we drop our guard, when we drop our mindfulness of our actions, that's when we are unheedful or can be very non-conscientious. And unheedful action is negative action. We're just doing whatever we want. We're not conscientious of our action. And so there's a quote Geshe-la also said that said, with the guards of mindfulness and vigilance, there will be conscientiousness, and without the guards of mindfulness and the guards of vigilance and mindfulness, will be unconscientious or heedless in our activities. And also there was a really wonderful quote Geshe-la said from Lord Master Atisha that said, with strong mindfulness and vigilance comes heedfulness, and therefore one will be very heedful of their activities of the senses, with the physical senses, and then one can withhold, one can maintain this mindful vigilance day and night. And so if one can guard oneself, one will be like one's own guard and very conscientious. And one should be the constant guard and observer, watchman of their own mind stream. Meaning, watching, what is the state of my mind? Am I afflicted? Am I doing good and decent things here? Am I remembering when I am doing good and decent things? Am I remembering the view? The view that means I, the doer, as well as the done and the receiver, are empty of, and they are not truly established. When one does this, this is a very high virtue. And am I remembering now to dedicate this virtue? Am I remembering the emptiness in this virtue? So yes, holding the view as well will really, really increase, kind of catapults that virtue.
So just one more comment. I don't know if it's a question, but sometimes I'm able to kind of see that there's just this karmic sort of dance going on. And if I recognize that, it takes all my, it just helps me to not be taking what's going on personally, I guess, so that I'm able to come from that more patient and loving point of view, I guess. But
And
the view is really what's helping, I think.
Mhm.
You know, if I can capture it, it's not always there, but
So in terms of karmic dance, did we lose Geshe-la?
did we?
We
Oh,
might have. Did we? I don't know, because my screen is wacky today too. So I don't know
No,
if
I
I see
see him.
everyone. He's there. Okay, good. So Garmick Dance. Tell
So,
me more what you mean about that.
that seeing that what's outside here, including, you know, people and things that are going on, that it's all arisen out of karma, that there's, you know, it's just kind of a flow of all that happening, you know, and if I'm sort of more aware of that, then I don't know, somehow I have more choice, I guess, about how I contribute or not to that in a positive way or negative way, I guess.
Ani di Geshe-la pena di Netzel chungna ani pena ken dane Netzel ani duksha yamana that's kalikapo chungna dane di drensutana oh di ngone le ne ani chungware di ngone denver denkyang mare di le ne chungpare ani di drana dane nga zerpagom ani tupkiore dane lung malang ani lung malangere lung malang dane di ngone di le gudrene ani chungpare
Tere.
di drana dane ngala lelaware dane nga yang ani lengen ani sagamare
Oh, tere. Chazan le gundi lal yan le gundi lan jithen be yan tabel tawala gore. Jithen yan tabel tawa le gundi tiago sungende jithen yan tabel tawa. Lendi lu huran de gun jithen be yan tabel tawa lu hundep chik gore. Losta zik gore. Ti shibu ke chimbore. Nangba sange bala kebar karyore. Le gundi samdana mi kenji teyena a kewa nga me lere sanda tendi ki sem nala ngamda chimbo de legi o mare le gundi me samlo mi khor kendela lila machi tona o nganti te da karina samdin tini pe shibuji ngamda chede ni pe draminda chigu udwa o te kebar yor te kepsan chimbore chezan jithen yang tapal thawa sigorda le gundi le tawa ite jithen yang tapal tawa zde shibuji cha chmuzi gore kepsan chimbore te
So, absolutely. You know, you've really hit it because when it comes to existing in this world, what is said to be the most authentic view in the world, you know, in a worldly sense, is action and consequence, karma and result, karmic action and the ensuing result. Understanding that there is this flow of karmic actions, ripening that are results, and other actions that are being created. That is the highest authentic view for the way, you know, functioning in this world. And when others do not believe or deny that there's any result from their actions, any consequences from actions, this is the perverted view, or very wrong, completely wrong view. And really what sets someone apart as a true Buddhist or not is whether someone really has faith and trust that there are consequences to actions. So there are karmic causes, and then there are the results, the ensuing results. And so, for example, someone who does believe and have trust in karma, maybe some situation, you know, like you mentioned, some things come about, and someone who is a Buddhist and understands cause and result will say, well, this is a result of karmas that have been committed in the past, and you know, I have a karmic connection to this from my past, and therefore that's why I'm experiencing it. And so it will be easier, as you say, to kind of go through this ongoing flow of life, remembering that. But for someone who doesn't trust and believe in karma, they'll say, oh my gosh, you know, how did this happen? Oh, why is this happening to me? This is awful. And they'll suffer because of this. And so really the one, you know, that does understand the connection between a cause and result gains great profit and benefit. They're the ones that gain profit for this. This really is very beneficial and helpful for them, while those that do not, you know, suffer.
Yeah, that was in Bakarmachan.
Oops, go ahead. Is that you, Matt?
Yes, I had a question about the three levels of causes and conditions that you were describing earlier. So just to clarify, you said the first two are sort of more middle way autonomy, and the last one is the consequence or the prasangika view. The last one is like names and forms and labels. And then I didn't get, the first one is everyday conventions. What was the second?
Okay, so just to check, are you speaking about the different levels of being interdependent, meaning the first one, cause and condition, second one, parts and assemblage, third, names and concepts?
Yeah, I don't think I wrote that. I don't think I got all that down.
Okay, it was either that or there was another threefold division, and the second threefold division was things that exist by way of convention in three different ways. One of them is that we all agree they're very well widely known. So I'm not sure which of the threefold divisions.
Yeah, you said the second one, you said you couldn't translate it.
Correct.
But then the first one I have causes and conditions, and then potential, like the potential of the apple tree is in the apple seed.
Yeah. Okay, one moment. Let me go back to that. So that's something different. One moment.
Oh, they kensum.
So these are the three.
Kensum the kensum yo me piken, mita piken, ni piken. Yo me piken dige karaka gor zidigala, jitin chapapo ta wanjula sabate ta lu yo al chung reze de tika gore. Ani mita piken dige tabi juli chung reze de tika gore.
Mita piken kari.
Mita piken dige tabi jule taba.
Oh, takbe.
Chirolba any Karsore, Zul Tapale, any be, Tendu Bandu, want you Tapale to Dugorwa, take it Kagore. Tini Nubi can take it, Mitapa in some Tendigumara, Coral Tumi be keg, Nubayore, Nubagore is a Tetengore.
Okay, young Kitchik Nupe can go that.
Mitapa in some Chogumares. You in some DJ in some Chogomar, Coral Tumumaimbe, Apple cake in Nubagorwa. Oh, Tumumaimbe, Nubas Madayor, and you didn't Tumumaimbe Nuba the Guarez, can't you soon they can soon pack a chamber in your.
Okay, so the threefold division of conditions. So we have causes and then there are conditions. And so the first condition, is the the Yowameba. Miyurpa Sana Yowameba.
Chirul Luiwa, Chirul Pecarella Gore. Chutamche, one jugul Zupara, one jugul Samlu Litubares. 르 요알리 중으로지 왕주
the yowa
요와스데 로기 빼 왕주기 사마나진지 줍송레스
oh
왕주 르 요알 중으로서 로스데 셰발 삼로와 삼바로와 오 삼르나진지 왕주게 에페 르 요알 중으로 마도 왕주고 서르 저바보 왕주 레스 라고레 이 왕주기 지겨 말에 데 까거레 지든체 바보 까거레 간진 지든체 바보
And so the first one, I'm not entirely, I think the actual label of it is, is something that I'm not entirely sure of. It seems like it's like an unwavering, the unwavering condition. But what it's talking about is that, for example, that there is a grand creator of things and the world. This is what it denies. So it kind of blocks or denies that there is an all-powerful creator that decides, that has the thought, this will be, this will not be, so it's like this creator God. And so it denies and negates that. That is the first condition.
That's like the Vaibhashika?
Di sugi tawore, di tangpo di kendi di chadramawa di.
Chadram di monichana pacha sadanga chansa imbaye Papa Tomek Zungri. Papa Tome.
Okay, so this comes from Arya Sangha. This is coming from Arya Sangha. So then the second of these, let me just go back, is the impermanent condition. And the impermanent condition refutes permanence. The impermanent condition refutes that things are actually established. Dene di mitakpe gi ken gi pay ani kare genla kisla.
Tapali kig mare ngirdo chingi mitapali kig oresi sungorwa. Tapa chiroba kaji zuze tapanne tile ni be jiden kanga kerze sungen jiore chetapazati chiroba chire. Tikagor chetapel tawakagor ingiranta.
So this particular condition negates and refutes that the view of many non-Buddhist schools of thought that that posit inherent existence or permanence. So this negates that view. And then the third condition is the condition that possesses potential or power, like a specific potential or power. And this condition acts upon things in ways that bring about a certain result, such as an apple seed has the potential to produce, so acts in a way that produces an apple plant rather than anything else. And anidi karigagere ton
Tigita 제지기다 탐제키야 매야지네 수수수 제수수 니바마라요 니바마라 기지 니바마라 만만마라요 때팅거라.
And so what this shows is that there are some conditions that produce things not in a very like varied all over the place way. They are going to produce things in a very specific way, like a programmed way. Again, apple seed to apple. And so
I think it was the second list then where you, the second threefold thing where you said the last one, names and concepts, was the consequence view. And then
Yeah.
the first two was the lower Madhyamaka.
Now, the first two were the tendril sum.
텐델 숨나는 유겐 텐델라다 유데 켄저 인가 용도 대 겁라 용거래 유겐 텐델 겁들 산다디 셰파데레게 와래
Okay, lasso dene su ani kelengiore dene ditawa di
데다 낭바친 룰루를 차대요라
lasso dene jupta shi nang ne.
두대지가 켈랭거지 그리
Okay.
텐델 라바 체대요라
Okay. So the first of these three interdependence, the first is causal interdependence, and this is accepted by all four tenet systems. Then nipa the tendril nipa yang
니빠데 다 차적인 텐델즈데 우마랑 유베 누구아래 되니 민캬타이즈 텐델데 우마 탕기와
Okay.
데 차쇼레 간제다 미 텐델 락파 차와 신도 차와 숨자고
And so then the second, the parts and assemblage, is accepted by the lower Madhyamaka school. And the concepts and labeling, assigning concepts and labels, is by the higher Madhyamaka school.
You said the second one's partial assemblage?
Parts and assemblage, yes.
And then the third was names.
And concepts. So labeling.
Thank you.
유겐 텐델데 깬디시디갈라 다 가야 지든체 바보 가야당 따비규르 중화 가야당 때니 망부 가거도 그래서 내 첨부지들에
So when you talk, so if you talk about causal interdependence, automatically this refutes that things came into being based on an almighty creator of some kind, be it, the Christian God or Brahma, because we're saying it came into being.
바바토메 페디데 kirshenda 가체데 요마르데 따티 가르데도 땡기 가다래 데디 다 왕주당 참바도선 지든지 바포레즈네 더겐페 망보야래 힌두 오다 대조다 무스 쪼바종로 와 바바토메 페디가라 다 가야데 대조 가거래 다탄다 kirsen세도 다 가체도 주구주구 랩겨와 somba chumdande pene lotu gi jugu pegyor lebgyorwa
La konda kutsuma sonte
kirshenda haje dezu somba chumdande jingle pene lotu gi songda mado kunzo le kunzo demba de taryo marwa
la so
re ta dezu tongi kapare musukayo mare tongi kapare
la so. And so at the time when Arya Asanga wrote this, it's not necessarily true that there were any like examples of like a Hindu example or a specific god that was being spoken about. So when he composed this, the way that it is worded is an almighty creator, just like an independent almighty creator who it's their soul wish for something to be this way or not that way, and that's why it comes about in the world. So because we're saying things are causal, that things come about due to being interdependent and due to causes, this automatically refutes any, like the later when the Hindus called Brahma and Indra, their gods that were saying, they were the creators. So this isn't about any particular, gods of any religion being, whether, it's Muslim or Hindu, or it's just about an almighty creator's wish, a divine wish of a being that something be this way or that way or come into existence. This refutes it all.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thought to was in song ingirida. Kalakagminde.
Probably at 6 and everyone is getting tired. So like maybe we'll stop the finish here for today.
Yeah. I'm watching.
So now let's do our dedication prayers.
Chancho Samcho Rimboche, Maki Pana Kingirchi, Kawa Nyamba, Mepae, Kone Kondo Tewa Show, Chanchos. Kari Rave Corvation Penon Deva Malin Juin, Cherezion, Tenzingat, Shape City, Partu Tengiruchi, Jambal Poi, Chitar Kembatan, Kundo Zonto, Teon, Teta Kunjis of Daluji, the one Tetatum Cheratum, Tisum Shapi Yawatam, Mohakanga Chodongapana, doesn't give it so on. Zampo Chuchiratum Wareki.
Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. In the land encircled by snow-white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows in your person, Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso. Remain until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samantabhadra too, so now I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my merit for all beings to perfect good actions.